Hey everyone, it's Lexie. So in today's video I'll be sharing with you the top 5 books that I read this summer. So the way this video is kind of organized is that I'll go through all the books that I've read over the months of June, July, and August, and then at the end I'll talk about the ones that made my top 5 more in detail. So without further ado, let's get started. So starting out in the month of June, I first read the Office BFFs by Kingfischer and Angela Kinsey, which I gave a 5 out of 5 stars. The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin, which I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars, but in retrospect, now looking back how obsessed I am with it, I'm giving it a 5 out of 5 stars. I'm just going for it. The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. Taste by Stanley Tucci, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. And Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfischer, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars to. Moving on to the month of July, I first read State of Terror by Hillary Clinton and Louise Penny, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout, which I gave a 1 out of 5 stars. Listen to Me by Tess Gerritsen, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. And the Gilded Wolves and Silvered Serpents, which I gave a 3 and a 4 out of 5 stars. Moving on to August, I first read The Bronze Beast by Roshani and Chokshi, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. Signal Moon by Kate Quinn, which I gave a 2 out of 5 stars. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. And Naomi's Gift by Martha Hall Kelly, which I gave a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So first up, I have 2 Taylor Jenkins Reid books, the first one being Daisy Jones and the Six, and The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I feel like these are her most popular books so far. And I read Daisy Jones and the Six. I listened to it via audiobook when I had to drive to Chesapeake Bay for a conference, and I was blown away by it with this. It felt like a real documentary. Like, I felt like these people were just so alive and real, and I think that's something that's really, like, I think special about Taylor Jenkins Reid's novels is that she creates these fictional characters in these fictional kind of worlds, but they seem so real and lifelike. The characters are very flawed, but you still can't help but root for them. And it's special too because, especially for Daisy Jones and the Six, it's been written as just like dialogue, so you get kind of the band encounters or like experiences or what they remembered happening, and this follows the kind of rise and fall of this popular 70s band known as Daisy Jones and the Six. So the narrator is doing a documentary, so she's interviewing the band members or the people that were involved with this group, and so you just literally get just like their dialogue as if it were a documentary of people doing a narration or of their like account of what happened, which I just think is super cool. I think this one was my favorite. Originally I gave it 4 stars, but just I was thinking about it so much, and just like I said, these characters felt so real, so I actually bumped it up to a 5-star read. So obviously I loved it. And then I also read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This one I really enjoyed. I didn't like it as much as Daisy Jones and the Six, but I still really liked it. I thought it was just really interesting. You follow Evelyn Hugo, who is also kind of recounting her life to this journalist that she picked. This journalist that she picked is very kind of low at the bottom of the totem pole, and we don't know why she specifically chose this author for her kind of bibliography or memoir until the end, which was a very interesting twist. But you kind of see each kind of chapter or section is dedicated to a certain husband, which I really liked, and you get kind of some like newspaper clippings as well, and just kind of seeing Evelyn like thinking about some of these like husbands and how she basically like used them to kind of like for her advantage, and then the ones that definitely start to get messy I really enjoyed. And again, Evelyn Hugo, she does things that, you know, make her unlikable. She does and says things that, you know, are very flawed, but you still can't help but root for her. This one was just so captivating, and to being kind of in that 50s era Hollywood, like that kind of era, just made it a lot more fun, like visually very appealing kind of in your mind. And yeah, I really liked it. Although I didn't like this as much as Daisy Jones and the Six, I still really enjoyed it. Like I said, it was just, there's something really special about Taylor Jenkins Reid writing and creating these characters that feel so real. So like I said, she's definitely become my new favorite author from my kind of marathon of her books over the summer. Next up, I have this book that's been on my TBR for a while that I finally read. I made it my book club pick, so I was kind of forcing myself to actually finally pick it up. And it is State of Terror by Hillary Clinton and Louise Penny. I was really excited about this because I just very much admire Hillary Clinton, and Louise Penny is one of my favorite authors of all time. Like, her Inspector Gamache series is hands down my favorite series of all time. And so this one was on my shelf for a while, and I think I was just being a little bit hesitant. Not hesitant picking up, but I'm like, you know, there's not going to be a new Louise Penny book until later in the year, and so this kind of helped with my kind of wanting more Inspector Gamache series books. So I finally picked it up, and I really like this. This was very much me stepping outside my comfort zone because this book is more of a political thriller. We follow, I forget her name, it is, I want to say, yeah, Ellen, who is the newly appointed Secretary of State, and she is appointed by a president that she was very critical of. So this was the president's way of silencing one of his biggest critiques. But when there are this series of terrorist attacks taking place around the world, Ellen is very much kind of put at the forefront to protect the safety of America, and it kind of goes from there. And because this is Hillary Clinton's, like, was also one of the authors in here, you really get like a first eye like perspective of what this like situation would be like. And the afterward they mentioned that like they based this story on one of the like 3 scenarios that like kept Hillary Clinton up at night, and I really liked it. It's very fast paced, you hit the ground running, and I think the combination of Hillary Clinton's personal experience being Secretary of State and also Louise Penny's writing style in terms of like mystery and, you know, like everything there, it just read really well. Like, it was such a page turner. I was so invested in this. There were times where like I could feel like my heart rate like increasing because of how invested I was in this. Like, it was like literally you hit the ground running, and it is very intense, but I really loved it. Like I said, this was me stepping outside my comfort zone. I've never really read a political thriller, but it was really a lot of fun. And for this being a book club pick too, a lot of you have mentioned that you enjoyed this one as well. So like I said, it kind of left an open-ended ending too, so there might be a sequel in the future, who knows, but I would be excited if that were the case, because like I said, I really enjoyed this. It was something a little bit different and a lot of fun, and you do get some kind of connection between like the Three Pines world of Louise Penny's series and this one as well, which took me by surprise. So yeah, like I said, this one was actually, I stepped outside my comfort zone, and I was pleasantly surprised with how things turned out. Next up, I have the Silvered Serpents by Roshani. This is the second book in the Gilded Wolves trilogy, and I really enjoyed this. I think it would have benefited being a more kind of adult focused fantasy series, and if the author was able to kind of add more kind of red herrings to make some of the plot points not as obvious. But I still really enjoyed this. I have a blog kind of documenting my experience reading this trilogy, so you can go check that out if you're interested. But essentially this follows a group of friends who are living in the late 1880s in Paris, and this place, kind of the way this world is set up is that there are people that have kind of gilding power, so they can either manipulate metal or kind of, you know, cell and tissue. They have these type of powers, and they're approached by this person who wants them to steal something, and it kind of goes off from there. The second book I think was my favorite. In particular, I don't want to give any spoilers away, more so it wasn't necessarily the plot, but it was the character dynamics, and it was just really interesting to see because there was a lot of intercharacter conflict in this one, and just seeing how they are kind of going about, and just the ending of this one was just a lot of fun. The one disappointment I said with the series, and my boyfriend read this after I read it as well, is that it was very obvious who the villain was, and if there were more characters added, that I think that would have made it less obvious who was going to be the villain, and it wasn't like I was, you know, taken aback or like really surprised when it was revealed who the villain was. So I think there were some downfalls in this one and in terms of the plot, but I still really enjoyed the intercharacter conflict and dynamics, and I think that's where I think this is where this one really shines. It was just a lot of fun, and again, I think it's where these characters is where this series is really, you know, good. Like I said, there were plot points in here that I think could have been better constructed, but I still really enjoyed the character dynamics of this one. And lastly, I have the Office BFFs by Jenna Fischer and Angela Kinsey, and I was really excited. I'm a big fan of The Office, and I really like their Office podcast, so I was really excited when they announced that they had a book coming out, and this is one that I listened to via audiobook, and it very much, because the way this book is constructed, it is like Angela says something and then Jenna says something, so it works really well as an audiobook because I feel like it's more conversational, if that makes sense. Like one person says something, the other person says something, so I think it works well in that style as an audiobook. And I think if you are a fan of The Office, in their podcast, I think you will really like this book. It kind of follows their kind of friendship of how they landed the job on The Office, their office experiences, and then kind of post-office life. And I really like this. Like I said, it was just a lot of fun. There's a lot of office tidbits in here. There's some like obviously carryover from the podcast itself, like things that I've read, like I've heard before from their podcast, but I still really liked it. I liked how it also talked about them kind of finding, you know, being okay with, especially with their podcast and taking control and asking or just, you know, advocating for themselves and learning how to be like, you know what, it's okay to, you know, expect like you want to have a certain salary or a certain, you know, time to be able to be with your family, and kind of setting those expectations, and especially for women kind of battling that kind of fine line between, you know, being assertive and then kind of being kind of termed like bossy, and how you kind of have to embrace that, which I really enjoyed, and just kind of their friendship overall. And you can tell like they love their time being on The Office. They get actually very emotional talking about some of these things in the audiobook itself and like these people, and so it's really, really fun to see. So I think if you're a fan of The Office, I do recommend the audiobook, but if you want to see some of like the pictures that are kind of behind the scenes, they're in here as well. So yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed this, and the audiobook as well has some other tidbits that aren't included in here, and some guest appearances as well. So like I said, if you're a fan of The Office, I think you will like this. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what some of your favorite books were of this summer and all of that fun stuff. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.